number one, number one rule in marketing. What is it? Oh, come on.
Lorna, what is
Well, there's many people.
The golden rule number one, that before you address anything, before you sell peanuts, what is it number
You
one?
know your market.
Thank you. Know your market. That's exactly it. That's exactly. You work for the marketing department, aren't you? So yes, you're right.
I've been up since 5.
What's that?
I've been up since 5.
That's true. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Omer. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Omer. I'm the Consul of Tourism for the State of Israel in the Midwest region. And this is Jill over there at the back, Jill Daly. She's our PR director. Say hi, Jill. There you go. And thank you all so much for coming and listening about this presentation, how to turn the destination into a product, because that's what tourism is all about. It's taking a geographical destination and to turn it into a product, which the first thing you do before you turn it into a product, you need to know who you're about to sell it to. Exactly, know your client. Israel is number one, the Bible land. That is number one. This is the reason why people always yearned to go to Israel. We have wonderful wineries, we have wonderful history, we have beautiful geology, but that's not the reason why people are coming to Israel. You have beautiful wineries in Tuscany, in Napa Valley, in Michigan. You don't need to go all the way to Israel to do that. However, there's one Jerusalem. There are 5 Jerusalem in the States, but there's one real Jerusalem. All right? So when you are speaking to a client about why to come to Israel, usually in the Christian audience, not so much a Jewish audience, more of the Christian audience across the denominations, from Anglicans to Catholic to Presbyterian to Methodist. The main reason why they want to come to Israel is because it is the Holy Land. So you as agents, you need to know how to turn that destination of the Holy Land into a product that will actually fit exactly to the criteria of your target client. Okay? So that's what we're going to try to do now in this presentation, using also the series of The Bible Comes to Life. Now that series, I'm just going to tell you a little bit before that about this. Hopefully we're going to have chapter 3 and 4 as well. So far we're at chapter 1 and 2. And this is actually taking the stories of the Bible and show exactly where it happened. Now why this is a key, crucial point. For many people from the faith-based oriented audience, we all know that the Bible is correct. Otherwise, we would not be in the faith base, right? But the problem is, for many people, they think or they believe that those stories happen, but they have no connection to the land itself. Once you show the connection to the land itself, that is a humongous marketing tool. It's also fun because it's true. But that's what's beautiful about this. I always say, if you go to Greece and you climb up the Olympus, you're not going to find the Palace of Zeus. You're just not. It's not going to be there. You're going to see a lot of clouds, but that's about it. But if you will going to go to Israel and you're going to visit Capernaum, you will see the house of St. Peter. You'll see it. Or you will going to see the Garden of Gethsemane. Or you will going to see the Garden Tomb or the Holy Sepulchre. Depends which denomination you're dealing with. You will going to see the Via Dolorosa if you speak about the Catholics. And you will, of course, will see Bethlehem, the place of where Jesus was born. So when you speak with that, this is your key point. This is where you start when you speak to your clients. Okay? You are here to show and to prove yet again that the Bible is 100%, should I say 1,000% correct. And that is where you start with. That is what makes you unique when you sell Holy Land destination. Another thing which is very, very important, piece of information, Jesus never left Israel. He never did. Paul did, Peter definitely did, Jesus never left Israel. So that's also a point that a lot of people seem to forget about this. This is a crucial key point also. I always say, yes, he went to Egypt when he was about a month old. He didn't remember the trip. So that's why Egypt is not so much a part of the Holy Land. Even though they did try, by the way, they did try, I give them that. So what we'll try to do, this is a virtual tour. It's completely different from what I wanted to show you before. This is a virtual tour. So you're all now on a bus. By the way, I'm a tour guide also in Israel. So you're all, I'm not such a good tour guide, that's why I'm here. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. You're all now in Israel on a bus. We're going to go on a virtual tour, which is going to be a classic itinerary. Not necessarily witty, classic itinerary, okay? So you're going to see the actual route, that little bus that rides. These are the real roads. And the idea is for you to be in each site and to find the chapter that is associated with the Bible comes to life. One of the keys that you can do, and that you know that knowledge is power, always, in every aspect of life. So when you're going to look at the Bible comes to life, on the 2 episodes, you'll find the name of the chapters. Not all of the chapters are here because we don't have 10 hours, but you'll be able to, when someone speaks to you about a holy place, you'll be able to know exactly to explain to him. Also the quotes of the Bible that relates to that story. Okay? This presentation is built on the idea of going to see that place that you have it here, the Bible Come to Life, and what you can see around it. So if anyone asks you about En-Gedi, what you can see around En-Gedi, first of all, know what En-Gedi is, and explain to him what En-Gedi is, the encounter of David and Saul, and what you can see around it. You have hotels, you have spa, you have all of this around it, okay? But the cornerstone, the drawing stone, the whole thing, faith-based. Feel free to stop me at any given moment. We're not going to see, of course, all the episodes, but we will see at least one for you to get a little bit of a whiff what it is, all right? So, Israel virtual tour. A little bit of information about Israel. One of the first key points, Israel is a fully westernized country. Fully westernized country. I think it'd be better actually with the light, with the camera. Is that going to be okay with the lights? I'm afraid of the dark. No, I'm kidding. No. No, light will be better because of the camera. Thanks. We're going to put this on YouTube, by the way. This presentation is going to be on YouTube. Feel free later on to look at it. If you forgot anything, it's going to be on YouTube. Wonders of technology. So, Israel is a fully westernized country. It's very important when you speak to your client because it's one of the first things that the client is afraid of. Well, it's something he fears is actually, I'm going to a place I have no idea what it is. I read about it, I hear about it in church every Sunday, I know the stories, but I don't know if I'm going to feel that comfortable because it is a schlep and a half away from here. Schlep in Yiddish is a major journey away from here. Israel is a fully westernized country with fully westernized amenities. Fully. So it's not that you're in a pocket, in a bubble, like if you go to Varadero in Cuba, you're in a pocket of Western culture. The minute you step out, you're not so much in a Western culture. In Israel, everywhere, top to bottom, side to side, Western civilization, Western amenities. Hotel chains, the same are in the States. 95% of Israelis speaks fluent English. We have it from the British Mandate. Well, the road signs are in English. If you have a client that would like to rent a car, usually not going to have it. 95% of the groups that come from the States are faith-based, 95% of them are groups. But if you do have FITs that would like to rent a car, we have Avis, we have Hertz Rent-A-Car, we have Budget, same thing. Chains are the same chains. ADMs, the same as in the States. Visa cards, all of them are accepted. No visa needed in the passport. It's a question that many people ask. No visa needed. The US is the Israel big brothers. We're not going to ask our brothers to a visa. That's just family incorrect. So that in terms of logistics. All right? I'm not going to read what's in it. I'm sure you all can read. But, and again, this presentation will stay here. You can use it. It's for you. So, the size of the country. The size of the country, actually, it's a sale pitch. Why is it? I'll give you an example. When I was in my honeymoon with my wife, we went to Tuscany. And then I said to my wife, you know what, we're in Florence, let's just take the train to Venice, just to see Venice. The problem is, the train ride between Florence and Venice is 7 hours. In Israel, 7 hours, you're going to end up in Cairo. So it's very small. You're going to have a lot of sites packed into one package. If you compare the package of Israel, which is again a Western civilization country, have to be compared to a Western civilization country, such as, for example, Spain. If you have someone who would like to do a pilgrimage to Spain, he will go to Santiago de Compostela, and that's it. That is the only site he will see in Spain. If he has enough time, maybe he can go to Fatima in Portugal, maybe he can go to Lourdes in France. That is it. In Israel, you have a pilgrimage after pilgrimage after pilgrimage, site after site after site, in a distance of about 40 minutes ride. Okay, so that is a huge sale pitch. Between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, 37 miles. Bless you. How far is it from here to Chicago?
160.
160. So 160, meaning you can go Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, what, almost 5 times, 4 times. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All right? Now, The place between Jerusalem, in those 37 miles, which is not even 50 minutes ride on a bus, not even 50 minutes ride, you have Emmaus, which is the place of Jesus encountered the two gentlemen. You have the place of allegedly where the cross came from. If you continue on, you're going to have Tel Aviv, which is a wonderful city by itself. Next to it is Jaffa, is a place where Jonah set sail and was swallowed by a whale. And this is in 37 miles. 37 miles. I'm not even talking between Jerusalem and the Sea of Galilee. We're not going to have enough time to cover all those sites. But when you speak to a client, you tell them, this journey, it's not a tourist destination, this is a journey. You're here to visit the soul of who you are, to go within your soul, to seek who we are. This is not, I used that this morning. I just came back from Yellowstone a month ago. Gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful place. Gorgeous. I saw beautiful mountains, I saw glaciers, moose, buffaloes, wonderful. Did it change my life? No, it didn't. Because I saw other glaciers in South America also. I saw buffaloes also not just in Yellowstone. I saw them even in Minnesota. It's nice. It didn't change my life. In Israel, when you go and you see the places where the Bible actually comes alive, it will change your life. It will change your life of who you are, of your family, of your close circle, because you will never read the Bible again. And again, we come to the beginning of what we just said. Know your clientele. If it's a faith-based oriented audience, the Bible is the key to the whole thing. Okay? So these are the destinations. Well, statistical numbers, government, what do you think? Of course, you're going to find numbers and statistics. You know, by the way, you know what the problem with statistics is? 95% of statistical fact are being invented on the spot. Think about that for a second. All right, so we got 4 C's. I use that line. You can steal it from me. We have the red, the med, the dead, and the Galilee up ahead. So that's a fun line. We have 6 climate zones, which again, it's pretty amazing. When someone asks you, so what kind of clothing should I pack? Layers. Think onion. You remember the movie with Shrek? Onion, the layers. You remember that? If not, watch it. So the first Shrek, the conversation with Donkey and Shrek, that is it. Where layers? I was about to say where onion. Where layers? Okay. Usually the time for the Christian faith-based oriented season is going to be more in the cold season. Cold in Israel is very relatively speaking. This is winter. What we have now here today, that's for us a harsh winter. Okay, so Israel is usually very, very warm. Once in a decade, you're going to have snow, and I pray to God you will see it. Because snow in Jerusalem is absolutely breathtaking. I had the privilege to see it last year. I was there with the group. So that in terms of climate. We have all of them. We have snow up in the mountains. We have desert climate. So if you can tell your audience, you will see Jerusalem, which is 2,400 feet above sea level, and 25 minutes later on a bus ride, your bottle will actually going to shrink because of the air pressure when you go down to the Dead Sea. That's minus 1,200 feet below sea level, lowest place on earth, and that's in 20 minutes ride. So there's a lot of everything. Okay. Tel Aviv. That's usually okay. So we're now in a plane. We're about to arrive to Israel. Usually, you're going to arrive to Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is a combination of Amsterdam and Miami. It really is. It's Amsterdam and Miami. It's a cool city. No biblical significance. It's a new city. It's 100 years old. So in Israeli terms, it actually 100 years old is yesterday. So, but very, very hip, very young, very nice. Not so much for the faith-based audience. However, one of the most important Catholic sites is Jaffa. It's right next to it. Okay? So that to keep in mind. This is Jaffa, and this bell tower over here is the house of Simon the Tanner, recounted in Acts 10. Okay? From Jaffa, from Tel Aviv, also you landed in the Ben Gurion Airport, which is right over here. You came to Tel Aviv, usually just for the overnight because people are after a long flight. And we're going to go up to Caesarea. Caesarea, this is the area of Caesarea, where you can find next to Caesarea. You have the wonderful city of Haifa. If you have faith-based who are not Christian but Baha'i, Baha'i is a very large community. The capital, the world capital of the Baha'i is Haifa. For them, it's a pilgrimage. It has nothing to do with Christianity or Judaism or Islam, but it's still a religion by itself. Haifa is the world capital of the Baha'i and has also the biggest hand gardens in the entire Middle East. The entire mountain of Mount Carmel is a huge garden. You see that? Stretch all the way. This is from high up on the mountain, all the way down to the Mediterranean. It's a huge garden. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. For Baha'i, extremely important. Next to it, you will find the city of Akko, right here, which is the most intact Crusader city in the world. You guys sell Dubrovnik? Dubrovnik is a replica of Akko. Was engineered by Venice, by the engineers of Venice, that they got the knowledge of the masonry from the knights in Akko. So there's a lot. If you have any people who likes crusades, I'm one of them. A Jewish guy who likes crusade, that's pretty funny. It's like a oxymoron for itself. But they build wonderfully. They were horrible people. They build wonderfully. So that's Akko, and of course you got the winery, not for the faith base, but you have wineries, exquisite wine right next to Caesarea, and of course Caesarea itself. These are the ruins of the main bathhouses of the nobility of Caesarea. So when we turn to Acts 10, the story of Cornelius and the baptism of the first Gentile, the first centurion, then we really see that one of the houses next to this bathhouse was the house of Cornelius. So that's why the Bible comes to life. Actually, going to give you a little bit of a taste to see what we're talking about. So I will go now to the only episode that we're going to show today. How do I do that? No. Ah, got it. So that's going to be Caesarea. Yes, no, maybe, yes. Shalom, and welcome to The Bible Comes to Life. Join us as we explore the stories of the Bible and experience them where they actually happen in the land of Israel. I'm Omer Escher, official Holy Land specialist representing the Israel Government Tourist Office, North and South America, and your host. Today, we will talk about the ancient port city of Caesarea. The city of Caesarea, or in Hebrew, Caesarea, was named after the great Roman patron of King Herod, Augustus Caesar. Herod built the city in the 1st century BC. He decided to build an immense city in honor of Augustus. It was a magnificent Roman city with the largest port in the entire Middle East. The city was so important and so vast that it was known as the second capital of Judea after Jerusalem. The city itself was primarily non-Jewish, a pagan city. There were many impressive structures, including a grand theater, 2 hippodromes for chariot races, bathhouses, markets, a great temple for the goddess Rome, a water system, and 3 aqueducts, 2 above ground and 1 underground. The most important thing about Caesarea was that it served as the main gateway to the east. It was the main port city connecting the province of Judea with Rome. As such, it was the seat of the Roman centurions, or governors, as well as the main headquarters of the Roman army. Just after the time of King Herod, when Judea became a province of Rome, it was governed by centurions sent from Rome. One of these centurions was Pontius Pilate, the same Pontius Pilate who condemned Jesus to the cross. Today, you can visit the site where the house of Pontius Pilate stood and see the actual stone that sat outside that house and read, "This is the house of Pontius Pilate." Caesarea was the site of one of the most important events in early Christian history, the baptism of the first Gentile, Cornelius. Let's turn to Acts 10. We read, there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian regiment, a devout man, and one who feared God with all his household, who gave alms generously to the people and prayed to God always. Cornelius was one of the commanders of the Roman legions. His house would have been in the richest part of Caesarea, close to the Hippodrome and theater, the same place where Herod and Pontius Pilate used to live. We continue in Acts 10. About the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly a vision, an angel of God coming and saying to him, Cornelius. And when he observed him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? So he said to him, Your prayers and your alms have come up for a memorial before God. Now, send men to Joppa and send for Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging with Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the sea. Let's pause and imagine the moment in which Cornelius sees the vision of the angel of the Lord talking to him to bring Peter, the disciple of Jesus, into the most important city in Judea after Jerusalem, and the province's main pagan city. If we continue in the chapter, we read how Peter comes into the house of Cornelius, even though he knows he is not supposed to associate with non-Jews. We turn to verse 29. I asked them, For what reason have you sent for me? So Cornelius said, 4 days ago, I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in my house. And behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing and said, Cornelius, your prayers have been heard, and your alms are remembered in the sight of God. Send therefore to Joppa, and call Simon here, whose surname is Peter. He is lodging in the house of Simon, a tanner by the sea. When he comes, he will speak to you. So I sent to you immediately, and you have done well to come. Now, therefore, we are all present before God, to hear all the things commanded you by God. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine Peter, along with Simon the tanner, standing in front of Cornelius the centurion, in a room crowded with people, waiting eagerly for the word of God. We continue to read. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, In truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality, but in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. And he commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that it is he who was ordained by God to be judge of the living and the dead. To him, all the prophets witness that through his name, whoever believes in him will receive remission of sins. While Peter was still speaking these words, the Holy Spirit fell upon those who heard the word. And those of the circumcision who believed were astonished, as many as came with Peter, because the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out on the Gentiles also. For they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. Today, when you are in Caesarea, you can visit the house of Pontius Pilate and imagine how just across from that house, Paul sat in prison, waiting to be sent to Rome to be crucified. You can visit the Hippodrome and the theater and imagine the wealth of the city, the chariot races, the gladiator fights, the first Christian fighting against wild animals. And you can imagine yourself being at the house of Cornelius, listening to the words of Peter and witnessing the historical baptism of Cornelius and acceptance of the Lord by the first Gentiles. Only in Israel will the Bible comes to life. So this is one. We have 12. We're not going to show you all the 12. You think they could make a better job with finding a better actor? All right. No. No. Okay, so we'll go quickly where we stopped. All right, so from Caesarea, do we have that? Yeah, okay. From Caesarea, we're going to drive to Mount Tabor, which is the Mount of Transfiguration. Okay, this is it. Extremely important site for especially the Catholics. There are two churches up there. One is Byzantine Church, usually is closed to the public, the Greek Orthodox. The other one is a magnificent, beautiful, stunning, beautiful Catholic church. If you do have groups who want to go up to Mount Tabor, for you to know, buses cannot climb up. You do have a terminal up there that is going to be a shuttle that'll take you up there. You can walk it. It's going to take you a while. But just for you to know, if you have a group from the Catholic faith, usually the Catholic faith, but not even that, if they ask them to go to Mount Tabor, make sure you know that. It's going to add a little bit more stretch of time. If they don't have the time, not a problem. You can go to Mount of Precipice and you'll see Mount Tabor from a distance. Okay? So that's Mount Tabor. This is the area of Mount Tabor. So we have the Church of Annunciation in Nazareth, Basilica of Annunciation. This is the Catholic. There are two. There's Greeks and there's Catholic. We have the Church of Cana, the Church of the Miracle of the Wine. We have Nazareth Village and the replica of Nazareth Village. So this is the replica of how the village of Jesus might have looked like, not the real site. This is a replica. These are real, this is replica. But still, it gives a very good understanding and perspective of how it might look like. So the area around, we got Tzipori, which was the main city in Jesus' life. This is the place where he used to go together with Joseph to sell the carpentry. Not in Nazareth. The Bible specifically says what good can come out of Nazareth. It was a small, tiny, little village. I can tell you I was there with a Catholic group. They were astonished. Because for them, when I said, Nazareth, what good can come out of Nazareth? It's almost like blasphemy. How can you speak about Nazareth like that? Nazareth was a tiny little cave village. The big city was Tzipori. And so when people go and see that, they can really understand how Jesus, a boy who came from a village, could have understand parables of major cities. How did he know how to do that? Because of the vicinity of Nazareth and Tzipori. That really brings, again, the Bible to life. Bet Shean, right next to it. Bet Shean is the Pompeii of the Middle East. It is. It's the Pompeii of the Middle East. In 749 AD, the city was destroyed in an earthquake. It just laid like that for 1300 years. So it's the same as you go to Pompeii and you see the remains of the city buried under ash. Same with Bet Shean. Climb up to the Mount of Bet Shean and you see the city torn in half, like this, because of the shift of the land. Why people don't know about this so much? PR. That is it. That is exactly Pompeii of the Middle East. Next to it, of course, Megiddo, the site of the Armageddon, the place that, according to the book of Revelation, should be the final battle between the armies of God and the armies of Satan. Okay? Extremely important site also. This is Jezreel Valley. That's my home. Yeah, just bragging. My home again. This is Merchavia. This is where I grew up. This is all the stories of the book of Judges. So you have the battles of Barak, son of Avinom versus Sisera. You have the story of Gideon versus the Midianites. You have Saul versus the Philistines. You have all the major stories, the miracle of Jesus and the son of the widow in Nain, also here. A lot of the stories happen in Jezreel Valley, again, because of the vicinity to Nazareth, and also all the main armies always had to go through Jezreel Valley. The reason is Israel is in the middle of 3 continents. And the only way to cross from east to west without hitting any mountain, that's Jezreel Valley. That is why the final battle should occur over there in Jezreel Valley. That's the only place we can have massive armies. By the way, just a side note, when the Crusades came to Israel, they did everything they could to avoid going through Megiddo. Because they said, if we are the Knights of the Lord, we're going to bring the apocalypse. So they went around. Just food for fun. All right, so that is my home. Again, I'm bragging. Okay, that's the fields behind my home, Jezreel Valley. This is the last stand of Saul. This is the last battle of Saul. If you're going to see the Bible come to life, that's going to be under Bet Shean episode. We're not going to see it. We don't have enough time, but just for you to know. From Jezreel Valley, we're going to go to the Sea of Galilee, which is, of course, a must-see point for everybody. If it's Christian audience, if it's Jewish audience, if anybody, it's the Sea of Galilee. In the Sea of Galilee, this is Mount of Beatitude. This is Mount of Beatitude. One of the most amazing things is to stand here and read the Beatitudes, because the topography of the land says exactly the same. Nothing changed. So So when you speak to a pastor, when you speak to a client, use that because it's true. It is true. To sit down and read the Beatitudes, it's mind-blowing. In the exact same place where they happen, it's mind-blowing. Next to Beatitude, of course, we got Capernaum. This is there's also Capernaum in the Bible Comes to Life. This is the city. It's called the city of Jesus, Capernaum. This is where he actually was based in Peter's mother-in-law's home in Capernaum, and you can actually visit the house of Saint Peter, the house. It's not a grand cathedral. It's a house of a fisherman. So when you are there, there's a church hovering above it. When you are there and you look down, you see the house of Saint Peter. That is mind-blowing. It really is, because you see a house of a fisherman. Incredible. This synagogue, by the way, is not from the time of Jesus. It's 300 years after Jesus. However, it is built exactly on top of the real synagogue that Jesus taught during that Sabbath, when they said that he speaks as one of authority, not one of the scribes. Okay, so that's the synagogue. Continue the miracle of the fish and loaves in Tabka, the feeding of the multitude. The distance between Capernaum and Tabka is 3 minutes bus ride, 10 minutes walk. Why? Because Jesus walked from side to side. He didn't take a bus. It's a little bit of a problem that day. So we got Tabka, we got, this is Gadara, the place of the miracle of the swine, which is across from Capernaum. Again, the Sea of Galilee is a tiny lake. It's not Lake Michigan. If you take Israel, you can fit inside Lake Michigan, Israel, 3 times. I'm talking the entire country 3 times in Lake Michigan. So our definition of a lake and North American definition of a lake is a little bit different. Emphasis on the little. Baptism, one of the highlights of every, I wouldn't say every Christian group, but most of the denominations. That's some denominations who do not baptize. For example, Southern Baptists do not rebaptize. Catholics, some of them will, some of them won't. What's amazing about the place? I've been on a trip with representatives from various denominations. Even denominations that do not baptize went to be rebaptized in the Jordan River. Why? It is the Jordan River. That is why. The power of faith, it is absolutely profound when you're there. I saw a reverend, a pastor of Assemblies of UPCI, United Pentecostal Church International, baptizing a representative of Assemblies of God, completely different denomination, and they both spoke in tongues. Just the sheer fact that someone from one denomination baptized another one, I think that's the prophecy of the lion and the lamb right there. But that's what I'm saying about the power of the scriptures. This is the very important site for the Catholics, extremely important site for the Catholics. This is the rock that Jesus gave the authority to Peter. It's not the place where he got the keys, but this is where he got the authority. For every Catholic group, this is one of the most important places because that place represents the Pope. Every time a Pope comes to Israel, they go to this site because he is the representative of Peter on this earth, according to the Catholic denomination, of course. This has nothing to do with religion. This is the Golan Heights, which is very, very close to the Sea of Galilee. It's about 40 minutes ride, not even. This is Hula Valley. Again, I say they're going to show you a little bit of things that are not so faith-oriented. This is one of the largest spots in the world for bird watching. In a day, during the spring and the summer, sorry, the spring and the fall, we have 50,000 cranes and pelicans in a day, in one day. And you can go on special tractors with special buggy behind it, and you could actually go like a safari between the birds. It's quite incredible. Sailing on the Sea of Galilee, one of the highlights of every Christian group. By the way, it's the same route that the Bible describes, the same route, because it's the same lake. Again, this is a picture of Gadara. So from here, we're going to go down south to Jerusalem. Any questions so far? Really? Oh, come on. All right.
The bus needs new shocks.
The bus needs what?
Your bus needs new shocks.
Yeah. It's not the only thing that it needs, but yeah. All right, so we are heading down along the Jordan River. It's what we call the Syrian-African fracture. By the way, another biggie. The biggest one is the San Andreas, which connects all the way down to the trench in South America. The second largest, Syrian-African fracture. So if you have someone that you say, okay, what else apart from the Bible? You're going to be in the second largest fracture in the world. This is the fracture that created the Nile, not the Nile, the Nile, the river, and also created Lake Victoria, and also created some of the Taurus Mountain, and also created, of course, the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, and the Red Sea. This is it. Okay? So we're going to reach the Dead Sea. Now, a question about perspective. What is this? Nose. All right. What is that? Do you see where I'm heading at? No. Good. That's exactly what I'm planning. That's my daughter. Aww. Apart from bragging on my daughter, why do I show you this? In tourism or in life, we have something that's called perspective. One of the questions that people are going to ask you, is it safe to be in Israel? Well, the answer is absolutely yes, it is safe to be in Israel. Why did I show you that? When you look at the CNN, you're going to see live from Jerusalem. They are covering the Arab Spring in Damascus, and the Arab Spring in Egypt, and riots in Jordan, not in Israel. But it's still going to say on CNN, live from Jerusalem. Why? Because Jerusalem is the safest point for those journalists to be at. Now, we need to explain that, but when the average person sees on CNN and says, oh my God, there's Arab Spring in Israel. No, there's not. The Arab Spring is not in Israel, it's in the Arab countries. So it's all about perspective. You cannot tell from one nose that this is the picture of my daughter. You can tell it's a nose, nothing more than that. You cannot tell from one line, live from Jerusalem, that it is in Jerusalem, because it's not. You have to have the full perspective. Okay? So this is a question that people always ask. By the way, people ask about safety, not just about Israel. Sadly for us, because we are the safest point in the entire Middle East, when every time they cover the Middle East, Israel's name is there. Not because of the riots, again, because we are the safest haven, so everybody is broadcasting from Israel. I mean, imagine, in the midst of the Arab Spring, we have more correspondents in Jerusalem, foreign correspondents in Jerusalem, than the entire Middle East combined. Because they're safe. They're safe in Israel, and it's a country of freedom of speech. They can broadcast whatever they want. Okay? Which our neighbors, not so much. So these are the numbers for 2012. We don't have the 2013 yet, but 2012, we had 3.5 million tourists in Israel. We said before the population is about 8 million. So if out of those 8 million, add 3.5 million, imagine the percentage of tourists you're going to see every single day in Israel. Out of those 3.5 million tourists who came to Israel in 2012, how many of them you think came home safe and sound? Blowing! I'm mind-blowing, all of them. Every single one of them. So is it safe? Yes, it is. Statistically speaking, this is something I use all the time. Every time that I'm using the roads in Illinois, and I see this big sign, did you know that 700 people died this year using this road? I was like, really? Yes. Statistically speaking, it is a lot more dangerous to go from Grand Rapids to Chicago than it is to be in Israel. Look at the numbers. That's about it. Also in terms of safety, kids and families go 24/7 in every spot in Israel. It's completely safe. Here, I would not even imagine to leave my daughter for 30 seconds, for 2 seconds without looking at her all the time. In Israel, my niece is 6 years old. She goes by herself to the forest next to her home. Completely safe. That's the mentality. We just spoke about that. Walk 24/7, blah, blah, blah. All right, we spoke about this. Sites along the way down to the Dead Sea. One of the biggest Crusader fortresses in the world is in Israel called Belvoir. Who ever heard of the Tower of London? Oh, come on, Tower of London. Yeah, we all know about it. Yeah. Tower of London, the same as Dubrovnik, is a replica of Akko. Tower of London is a replica of Belvoir. Again, the Crusades. This is one of the most. This castle gave birth to all the medieval castle, or what we call the concentric castles that you'll see all over Europe. The prototype is this, Belvoir. So if you have a group that is interested also in history, not just Bible, but in the 2,000 years between Jesus and our time, Belvoir is a perfect place to go and visit. That is the second place of the baptism, more associated with the Greek and the Catholics. It's called Qasr al-Yahud. Now, people are going to ask you, how come there's 2 baptismal places in Israel? How could that be? The Bible specifically speaks about the Jordan River. It doesn't say where in the Jordan River. So every point on the Jordan River is kosher. All right? That's why we have two baptismal places. Caves of Qumran. This is the place where they found the actual scrolls of the Dead Sea. that gave understanding for us to understand what is baptism is all about. Here's where John the Baptist tried to be a member of the Qumranites. You'll see it on the Bible Come to Life under the chapter of Yardenit. Okay, Yardenit is a baptismal place. That's in chapter 1. And this will explain to us how exactly baptism came to be. Why? I'm not going to go into this. We don't have enough time. Dan is going to kill me, so we're going to move forward. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls. You will see the Dead Sea Scrolls in Jerusalem, the real one. 2,000 years old. Guys, these people who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls knew John the Baptist. They knew him personally. It's not that they heard about him. It's not even the Gospels didn't know John the Baptist. They were written 150 years after. These were written at the same time of John. So when you read this or you read the translation of that, you will feel the mindset of the disciples of Jesus, or even a little bit before him, John the Baptist. Because you will have a capsule of time to go back to explore the beginning of Christianity. Right there. Continue, of course, Masada. I'm not going to tell the story about Masada, but but by the way, all the biblical mounts in Israel are UNESCO sites. Masada is also a UNESCO site. A lot of people are really happy to hear that they've just been to a UNESCO site. So add that to the pile. You've been to the Jerusalem, you've been to the Sea of Galilee, you've been to the lowest place on earth, you've been to one of the oldest cities in the world, and you're also in a UNESCO site. Any better than that? It's pretty hard. All right? So that's the UNESCO site. That's one of my favorite pictures. I wish I'd have taken that. I didn't. That's that's sunrise in Masada. And this is the ramp, the Roman ramp, the way they went up. Stunning place, really stunning place. Dead Sea. Dead Sea is the saltest place on earth. It's called Dead Sea, however, there is one bacteria that does live there. I wouldn't like to be that bacteria, but okay. The density of the water is so thick they can float. You can actually float. You're not going to sink. It's pretty amazing to see that. You walk into the sea, you lay back, and that's it. You don't need to do any efforts, nothing, because of the density of the salt. You will float. It's a miracle by itself. It's really cool. The only thing is, tell your customers, do not shave before you go to the Dead Sea. That will be painful. It will clean up and sanitize the wounds, but it will be painful. Dead Sea also is the largest natural spa area in the world. Natural spa. Okay, we talk about the minerals of the water. We speak about the hotels. You have 5-star luxurious hotels in Dead Sea. Most faith-based groups will not stay in the Dead Sea. They will float, but they're going to drive back to Jerusalem. It's an hour-and-a-half drive. Not a biggie. However, if you do want to have a group that does want to stay in the Dead Sea, not a problem. You have a lot of resorts to stay in. Beautiful amenities. World known. It's world known. You guys ever heard of Ahava? The hand cream, Ahava? You can find it in Marshalls even. So Ahava in Hebrew means love, and it's considered to be one of the best in the world. Next to the Dead Sea, we have En Gedi. This is the ibex. En Gedi in Hebrew means the spring of the ibex. You're going to find it also in the Bible Come to Life, chapter of En Gedi. The biblical connection to the Dead Sea is the encounter between David and Saul, when David cut the wing out of Saul's jacket. Okay, and then Saul understood that he lost his kingdom to David. That's also the Bible Comes to Life. If someone asks you if there is any biblical connection, yes, there is. And this is it. We're not going to go to the chapter, but for you to know it's there. Continue from there, we're going to reach to the crown jewel, which is Jerusalem. Okay? It's a cool picture. This is the view of sunset from Mount of Olives. It's, I'm just going to go over the site just for you to see it. Of course, the Western Wall, which is, for me, it's one of the most incredible places in the world. Western Wall. This is, if you have a Byzantine group, or anyone from the Pan-Orthodoxy, meaning Romanian, Serbs, Armenian also, they have what we call the Holy Sabbath of Fire, which is the biggest holiday in the entire Eastern Christian calendar. It's, according to the belief, a fire comes out of the heavens and lit up inside the Holy Sepulchre, and from there the two patriarchs, Armenian and Greek, comes out with torches to lead up the fire, and then representative of countries that are Orthodox, like Romania, like Greece, taking special lantern to their designated homelands, and then they light the fire in their churches. So that is, even if you have someone who's completely pagan, That is absolutely incredible to see that. All these lights that you see here, all these flames, will be imported to Byzantine or Greek cities around the world, including Chicago, by the way, including Chicago. Garden Tomb, of course, one of the most powerful places. I know that you are mainly working with mainline Protestant. That will be your place. Holy Sepulchre for the mainline Protestant is going to be more of a beautiful church to visit. Of course, the belief of the burial place and the resurrection is Garden Tomb. Beautiful place. You can see the garden, you can see the tomb, you can see the place of the seal, the whole thing. Exactly as the Bible describes it. Garden of Gethsemane, one of the most beautiful places, the most profound places in the world. Those trees, my friends, are 2,000 years old. 2,000 years old. So if you want to have anything that is alive in our time, that witnessed the time of Jesus, this is it. And especially the Garden of Gethsemane, that crucial night before the crucifixion. This is it. That is a place that, I was there with a group of pastors, and we all reflected about that each and every one of us has a Gethsemane in every given time, in every given moment. How do we deal with this? Using the story of Gethsemane, that you know what's going to happen to you, but you still go with it. This is I think one of the most powerful places in the world. Okay, Garden of Gethsemane. This is so Garden of Gethsemane is actually made out of two complexes. One is the garden itself with the olive trees. The other one is this church, which is called the Church of Agony, or the Church of All Nations. If you have a group who is more Catholic, that's the place they would like to see. It's a church that was donated by the major Catholic countries in the early 30s, and they built it together to show the completion of the cycle. The night before the sacrifice, the night before the crucifixion, which was a low point for humanity, they actually exalt, and it's a very nice symbol. So the Catholics would really appreciate that church, really do. Continue, of course, the processions and the Via Dolorosa, the 14th station of the cross. I gotta tell you a funny story. I was in St. Paul. They have a beautiful cathedral, beautiful. And I was there with a tour guide. And he pointed out and said, these are the 10th station of the cross. And I raised my hand and I said, sir, no, I'm sorry, there are 14 stations of the cross. He said, no, I beg to differ. There are 10 stations of the cross. I said, sir, no, I've been to each one of them, I don't know how many thousands of times. Each and every one of them. And he told me, so please explain to the group, he was pretty upset with me, please explain to the group, why do we see only 10 stations? I said, because the other 4 are behind the pillar. Go behind me, you see the other 4. So yeah, there are 14 stations of the cross. And then when we came out, he came to me and said, aren't you a devout Catholic? I said, actually I'm Jewish. But yeah. It's 14 stations of the cross. It's in every Catholic church you'll find it. And this is a cornerstone for Catholicism. And of course, when you have a Catholic group, the Station of the Cross, Via Dolorosa, it is a must. You have to have it. Learn about it also. It's quite incredible to see that. So these are the procession every Friday. The Franciscan brothers are going the entire. They have a procession going from the Church of Flagellation all the way up to the Golgotha, the entire 14th station of the cross. Really impressive sight to see. City of Jerusalem at night. This is the Valley of Kidron, Mount of Olive, and these are the tombs of the prophets, Zechariah, for example. These are that I took about 2 years ago. We had a festival of light in Jerusalem around Christmas time with Hanukkah, but Christmas also. So the city was illuminated. It was beautiful. Every year they have it, by the way. Another way for you to explore Jerusalem is with Segway. If you have someone who doesn't really want to walk so much, you're not going to cover a lot of ground in the old city because it's steps. And Segway, you can go with a Segway on a step. I don't know how you can. You will fall, but technically you drove over a step. The end result is up to you. But you can have Segways today going around the old city and go to the Mount of Evil Council and see the entire city just spread before you. Stunning, gorgeous. Of course, you could put it as a part of the package. Well, that's me taking my wife also. So I know some crazy people who actually did it. Dining, where people are going to ask you about food in Israel. The food in Israel is exquisite. The reason is because we came from all over the world. My family came from Germany and Hungary. My wife's family came from Iraq and Romania. So think about that combination. I mean, we have a UN right at our plate. So when you're gonna get to Israel, you're gonna get everything from everything. Someone once asked me, what is a typical Israeli meal? I said, go online, check from every nation, every dish, that's a typical Israeli meal. Okay, and the food is absolutely incredible because we grow our own product. When I just came to the state, they said it's organic and non-organic. For me, it was a new thing. What do you mean? If it was grown from the ground, it should be organic, right? Here I learned not. But in Israel, it is organic. We grow our own products. In Jerusalem and also in many other cities in Israel, you can have the wonderful experience of dining in a house which is 500 years old. Again, for Israel, 500 years old, it's not that old. In American terms, it's prehistorical. So this house, for example, is pretty young. It's 230 years old. So that's in the New Jerusalem, okay? Wonderful food. Continue. This is something that I think is one of the nicest in Jerusalem. It's a light and sound show. You can book it at the city of the David Tower Museum. It's an open theater, and you have a projection all over the walls of Jerusalem, the history of Jerusalem. It has no languages in it. It doesn't speak. The only thing you can hear is if I forget thee, O Jerusalem. That's it. And everything else is because you see everything from Abram till our days. Beautiful, really beautiful. Pretty accurate also. Not pretty, very accurate actually. This is the Israel Museum, the largest museum in the Middle East. And has amazing archaeological finding. One of them is the tomb of Herod, the Herod from the massacre of the innocents. The one. We have his tomb. Continuing, Yad Vashem, which is the Israel Memorial of Holocaust. Extremely important if you really want to understand the mentality of the Israelis. You have to go and visit it. You have to go and visit Yad Vashem. It's a very, very powerful place. Bars, again, that's Jerusalem. That's how it looks like. So it's a mixture of Tuscany and Iraq and Romania and everything together in one pile. All right? Fruits and vegetables, I think the best open market I've ever been in my life is Machne Yehuda market in Jerusalem. You can actually have a special culinary experience for your group to go with a local chef. Your DMC will make it for you. To go with a local chef, they buy their own product and they go to his home, to that chef, and they make together a special meal. It's quite an experience. It's really nice. This is a friend of mine who makes the best. You know what halva is? Halva is like sweet sesame with honey. He makes it. I'm just saying because it's the best halva I ever had in my life. Hotels, where people ask, okay, so you saw all of this, very nice, very good. Are we going to stay in a stable? You might, 2,000 years ago in Bethlehem, but no. This one, actually, in Israel, the amenities are very, very close to the US. However, our star system is different. In the US, compared even to Europe, usually the 4-star in Europe will be 3 stars in the States. Similar to Israel. Very similar. Usually the faith base will stay in a level of no lower than 3 stars. But this is a 5-star. This is a Mamila hotel. So you have all the range from 2 stars all the way up to 5 deluxe. Okay, with full amenities, internet, the whole thing. So you are actually staying in front of a city that was built 3,000 years ago in a hotel that was built a year and a half ago. In terms of chains, we've got World of Astoria in Israel. We've got, hopefully we're going to have Kempinski coming in. No, we will going to have Kempinski coming in. Intercontinental. So main chains, hotels, are in Israel as well. Okay, so if you have any client who is afraid, who doesn't know, it's the same standard because it's the same chain. Okay. Continuing, this is the World of Astoria, just open in April. Beautiful structure. This is the King David Hotel. It's a part of the chain of Dan. We have a lot of Israeli chains also. Again, more to the European chain than to the Americans, but same idea. This used to be Hyatt. Today it's Dan, but again, as we said, international chains. This is an Israeli chain. These are the hotels you will find in Jerusalem. You can also find in the eastern side of Jerusalem boutique hotels. But the boutique hotels are something very, very nice. If you have a small group, let's say no more than 10 people, let's say 5 couples, you can go to what we call a tzimmer. Okay? A tzimmer is a family-owned hotel, usually very high-end, but not that pricey, because it's kind of like agriturismo in Italy. It's about the same idea. You're familiar with that product, the agriturismo? That you send people to live on people farms in Tuscany? Similar, minus the farm. You're in Jerusalem. But that is how it looks like. Very nice, very chic-y boutique. Very nice. So if you have complete sold out in the main hotel, you can still go with that. But this is more for smaller groups. We have the light rail in Jerusalem. So if, let's say, the city center is completely full, you can book hotels outside the city center. It's a 7 minutes ride in the heart of Jerusalem. What else do we have here? This is, we call it the Kibbutzim chain hotel. It's a completely different level. It's not in the star system. If you have a group who would like to stay in the kibbutz, kibbutz is a, how do I say that in English? It's a form of a collective farm, okay? And some of them do have amenities, mainly in Jerusalem and in the Sea of Galilee, that they're going to offer. It's kind of like, Jill, how do I explain that in English?
I don't know. I was thinking the same thing as you were speaking. The kibbutz hotels, they're more.
It's more of an experience than in a hotel.
You're experiencing the culture and you're
Yeah.
experiencing the people more than anything because you're actually interacting on a more intimate level with them than you would at a general hotel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's nothing, the reason why I cannot explain this in English because there is no equivalent to this anywhere else in the world. So we do have that. They're usually not high standard, for you to know. But again, when you have someone who's there for a pilgrimage or for a journey, the hotels don't play such a high role. The idea is to put your head to sleep in a nice clean place, and that's about it. This is the southern excavations. These are new discoveries. I'm going to go really quickly because we're almost out of time. This is the actual steps that led to the Temple Mount. This is the place where Jesus cast the booth of the money changers. When you read the book of Psalms, I shall lift my eyes up to the hills, where will my salvation will come? These are the hills. You actually, the Song of Ascent, you ascending up. Not metaphorically speaking, literally speaking. You're going from the Pool of Siloam up the hill into Mount Moriah. That's what you will see. From there, we'll go back to, after Jerusalem, we'll go back to Ben Gurion, where we're going to have a pleasant flight back to the States. Few statistics. 75 airlines flying via Europe. From the US, or from North America, we have a direct flight, non-stop, from Newark, JFK, Philadelphia, Toronto, and LA. Okay, all the rest going to have to have a stop via Europe or via New York. These are the main airlines that are flying to Israel. Of course, El Al is the Israel carrier. It's not a national carrier. It's not like what used to be Olympic, but it's a